In today's Whiteboard Leadership Moment, I want to talk to you about leadership transition models, and I want to give credit where credit is due. Thank you to the Auxano group and Will Heath, a part of that group that trained us in some of these concepts. I can tell you now that many of our districts are trained in the concepts, and all of them can help you figure out how to move in transition of lead pastors and other staff positions. But there are really three major models of leadership transition. The first is called the start and stop. This is one we also call the baton pass, where you see one leader has been leading for a long time and they are going to just hand off the baton and let the other person run with it. There are a lot of people, a lot of churches that use this model. The reason you would do this is you don't actually have a whole lot of money, and so you can't pay two leaders consecutively. So you have to figure out how to just hand off from one to the other. It could be that you're trying to change the culture. When you're changing culture, you typically are hiring an outside person. You don't want the inside person to stay there, and so you're actually trying to change. Sometimes it's crisis. There's a moral failure or some other kind of tragedy in the life of the organization. And so the start-stop is a very, very common model. A less common model is the second one. It's called the overlap. Overlap is a brilliant idea in ministry, especially because you're not just handing off a baton, you're trying to train people in the environment of the organization. And so this allows the old leader to stay in for a period of time and train up and apprentice the new leader. Whether it's an inside person or someone coming from the outside, what organizations do is they have a time frame where both leaders are in place, and there's a transition from the one person being in charge of many things to handing off some of those things to the second person, eventually handing all the things off to the second person and still being there for a little bit to watch it, but then finally this person being removed. A lot of organizations that have the resources, they have the time, they have health, this is the kind of transition they should think about doing. And I wish more churches would think this way, because it's a much healthier transition. If the culture is good and the health of the organization is good and the resources are there, this is just the best way to do it. So the third one is this. It's intentional interim. This is one we see a whole lot in our churches, and a lot of people assume that just because you've been there a long time, you have to have an intentional interim. That's simply not true, especially when you find a candidate that has the same competencies, the same culture, and has chemistry with the team. You can do a much more overlapped rather than intentional interim. Intentional interim is designed when there are problems in the life of the church, when there are issues, when there's complexity, when there's difficulty. And it's the best option for those things. There's a book by Russell Crabtree called Transition Apparitions. And what it teaches us about the intentional interim is that in a lot of cases, an intentional interim actually does more to cause problems than it does to help the organization, because it creates this sense of apathy in the waiting time between the old leader and the new leader. On the other hand, there's sometimes it's exactly what you need to do. I encourage you to contact your district leaders to get discernment on which one of these practices is best for you. May God help you as you move from one generation to the next in the leadership of your church. This has been a Converge Whiteboard Leadership Moment. To learn more about Converge or to join us, check out converge.org.